If you're looking for an easy way to capture beautiful photos of your jewelry using your phone, but you don't have the money to invest in a GemLightBox, I've got some great tips for you. I'm Chris Cravens, the artist at 10 Gables, and can't wait to show you how I use my phone to take photos of jewelry in the studio. Let's get started. The first thing you're going to need is a nice background to take your photos on. I just used the simple solution of a 1/4 inch piece of plywood painted white. I like this interior semi-gloss because it gives a nice sheen to the surface and it's easy to clean. The next thing to consider with your jewelry photography are your props. I recommend keeping it simple and creating a kit with 2 or 3 items used to support your jewelry that your customers will love. Now let's go to the studio and talk about lighting and taking the shot.
First thing you want to do is make sure all of your lights are off if you're inside. If you're outside shooting on a cloudy day or in some shade like under a tree or a shelter is a good way to get great photographs. What you want to look for is nice soft light hitting your subject. This is my hand. Here's the bracelet. You don't want to be in deep shade like this. It's hard to get the colors right. And you also don't want harsh light that's going to cast a lot of shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and use this little pottery dish that I have and set the bracelet on it. One of the things that I look for is where the light is coming from. So enamel can be hard to photograph. Like right here, I'm picking up all the light from that window. I wouldn't be able to fix that in post-processing no matter what I did. So I might set it like this. There's a little bit of light up here, and I'm gonna go ahead and take a photo so that I can then show you how to post-process.
Here's an example of harsh light. Notice all the shadows and light in dark areas. This is the photo that I ended up taking with my phone and I'm going to use now to show you how to post-process. What I look for to see if a photo is good enough is that the light quality is decent, that I can see some details. Looking at this one, it looks a little dark, but we're going to take care of that in a minute. My favorite app to use on the phone is Lightroom by Adobe. It's similar to Photoshop, but it's a little easier to use. They have a free version of the app in the App Store for both Android and Apple. I'm using an Apple device, but your Android would look similar. Let's get started with using the app. Once you're in Lightroom, you'll be able to add photos from your phone. Select the button in the lower right that looks like a picture with a plus sign over the top. Choose from camera roll and then select your image. Now that I've loaded the picture of my bracelet, I'm ready to start making some adjustments. In the lower portion of the app, there are some controls that you can make adjustments to, things like the crop of the photo, the light, the color. We're going to make a few minor tweaks to this to give it a bright and airy look. So mainly we're going to be using the light menu. The first feature we're going to look at under the light menu is called exposure. Exposure regulates the amount of light that appears in your photo. Move the slider to the right and your photo will get very bright, to the left and it gets very dark. I like to aim for an exposure of about 60 with the light situation that I have up in the barn with the window. The next thing we're going to look at is contrast. Contrast basically removes and adds value between the light and dark portions of your photo. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the contrast for this particular photo to about 30. I like that. It looks good. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at highlights. Highlights is similar to contrast, but it's only looking at the light values in your photo and making some adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and set this to about -40, just to soften the photo up a little bit. Shadows works similarly. With light and airy photography, you want to reduce the shadows that you see in your photo. So I'm going to go ahead and move this to the left and set it pretty high at about 75. The last two sections in this light menu that I like to play around with are the whites and the blacks. Basically what this is going to do is adjust the amount of white values and black values in the photo. So I'm going to reduce the whites a little bit to about -55 and increase the blacks to about 35. This just adds some depth to the photo. The next thing that I want to do for a light and airy style photo is use this effects menu. There is a feature in the effects menu called clarity that will basically add a lot of blur if you move it to the left and crispness if you move it to the right. I like to add just a little touch of blur when I'm creating photos for social media. I don't do this for my website photos because I want them as crisp and clean as possible. So those are primarily the settings that I like to use to create light and airy photos inside of Lightroom. So I'm going to go ahead and select the check mark to apply the changes to the photo. Now, on a little side note, this only updates inside of Lightroom. So I'm going to show you a couple more things that I like to do and then how to export the photo. The first thing I want to show you is how to use a feature in Lightroom called presets that will allow you to basically accomplish one-click editing based on settings that you've made. So the first thing we're going to do is select the photo that we just edited. So I'm going to tap it and now it's open. In the bottom menu, you'll see an option called presets. Go ahead and select that. And once you open the presets, you'll see a little icon in the upper right corner with 3 dots. Select it, and now you're able to create a preset. So I'm going to choose Create Preset, and I'm just going to name this a preset. And select the check mark. Oh, sorry, quickly before we go through, you'll see down below where it says it's got all these check marks underneath select. It's basically telling you the edits that you've applied. So we basically went in and made 7 changes to the light. We made a couple changes to the detail, to the effects. So this just helps organize and give you information about what this preset does. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark, and now my preset is available in the user presets. So when I started with Lightroom, bought a set of presets from a company called Light and Airy Photography for, I want to say, like $40 or something. They are fantastic. So if you don't even want to go through the hassle of playing around with and making settings, I highly recommend Light and Airy. I am not an affiliate. I don't make any money from recommending them. I'm just really happy with them. In fact, the one I use most of all is from them. So I just want to kind of show you how presets can work. So if I tap on this LNA black and white, now I have a gorgeous black and white photo. Brighter greens, and my greens stand out a little bit more. I use Light and Airy Clean almost extensively for the work I do. So in a nutshell, that's presets. I'm going to go ahead and put it back to the settings we had with our new A preset, oh, sorry, A preser preset, and click the check button. One last thing that I like to do inside of Lightroom is go ahead and crop my photos. Uh, the reason that I like this is because it has a nice grid so that it helps me position the focal point for the photo. I tend to use square photography a lot because of two reasons. Instagram loves it, and it also looks good on my website the way I have it set up. So as you can see, as I'm making some changes here, I'm able to drag my photo around because I've made the viewing space pretty small. And I like to position the focal point on one of these intersections of the grid. It just adds a lot of movement to photos when you do that rather than sticking it right in the middle. So that looks good. I like it. I'm going to click the check mark. And now the very last thing to do is export this photograph to my camera roll so that I can share it later. Again, all of the changes that we're making and have made are only stored in Lightroom. So you have to get the picture out of here to use it somewhere else. So there's a button in the upper menu that looks like a little box with an arrow pointing out of it. I'm going to tap it, and then I'm going to click export to camera roll. And it is now saved to my camera roll. So if I go out to look at photos, there it is. So we just went from this picture to this one. I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I'm happy to help.